Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. Today's video I want to first talk about the Aston Villa game review. Look at what potentially Ten Hag has unfortunately gotten wrong here after a very good run for a few months actually, following the opening of the season. Some great results outside the City game. Really, I think the first time that I would say that Erik Ten Hag has made some very blatant mistakes. And my hope is it's not a blind spot for him. Many managers often do have a blind spot here or there, or a blind spot player, someone that they cannot see is extremely ineffective. But Ten Hag has not shown a propensity for that. I thought might be Malaysia because he transferred him in, and then he started using Luke Shaw regularly to great result. Again, the goal scorer against Villa. But starting out with the game, it was obviously very bad right off the get-go. Starting out, the midfield was pretty much wide open. Aston Villa walked through it. They outnumbered us in the midfield, outnumbered us in the back line, scored quick, easy, quite simple goals to get up 2-0 in the first half, in the first 15 minutes of the game. And United then, following around the 25th minute or so to the end of the half, were a little bit more on top as Aston Villa settled in real deep, which maybe was how Ten Hag was expecting them to play from the get-go, which was, to me, a little bit naive. Poured on a lot of pressure, put in a lot of crosses, ended up getting a nice deflected goal, somewhat fortunately from Luke Shaw putting the ball in or shooting into the box. And it looked like we could get on the front foot. And everybody was saying, listen, all over, get some changes out there. Get, Fred on for Van de Beek to shore up that midfield and push Eriksen more forward. Get Martial on for Ronaldo, and we should win this game. Comes out of halftime, no changes right from kickoff. They run down, nearly score again. Leon Bailey nearly scores right from kickoff, and you think immediately, I remember saying, yeah, we're going to concede again, guaranteed. It's coming, it's minutes away, it's going to happen. And then, yes, a few minutes later, Villa score, once again, just walk through the midfield on the counter. There's 3 or 4 United players back. There's 4 or 5 Villa players in attack. Nobody's tracking back from the forwards. The midfield, which we'll get to in a moment because this is the biggest issue on the entire thing, is empty. Eriksen's back there defending in the box. Casemiro's back there defending, but a certain third midfielder is nowhere to be seen. And they go up 3-1, and from there, United really sputtered despite changes and things. And people could say, oh, well, they made changes and it didn't get better. It doesn't matter. They'd obviously lost the will at that point, the impetus and all the momentum. So, you can't say, oh, well, you made a change and took a player off and things didn't get better, therefore they weren't the problem. That's not how the game state works. That's not how the attitude works, the setup works, all of that. Villa came out attacking again in the second half without those changes and did exactly what they did at the start of the first half. They couldn't maintain it for 45 minutes, but they didn't have to. It was so easy to cut through United overall that they really could just do it 15-20 minutes, get that goal, and then settle in, and we were defeated. And looking at it, the answer is incredibly obvious and a bit disappointing to me. Well, I say disappointing because I say it's disappointing that Ten Hag missed this. And to be very clear, you can criticize and critique when a manager gets things wrong with the expectation that they'll get things right, without it being some big thing, without it being some big thing to criticize them or acting like there's no support. This is identical to what happened in the Europa League game where I said this is a huge mistake. Not quite identical, but a huge mistake, a huge error here because you've vacated the midfield. Look on the left here, Donny van de Beek, no pass map with anybody. He completed so few passes, he has no pass links with anybody. Look at his positioning. He's off in the middle of nowhere. Even Ronaldo is dropping much deeper to try to get involved and support the team. Casemiro and Eriksen's kind of stuck on each other here. Rashford having to drop really deep to try to get onto the ball and having virtually no luck because, once again, There's no right side attacking midfielder to link up the play. Look at the positioning on the right here. Donny van de Beek is the most advanced central player. It makes no sense. Otherwise, the shape is fine. Otherwise, it looks a lot like how we've been playing. And so, Ronaldo's performance was very poor, but at the same time, it's amazing to me. It's amazing to me, this mistake. I'm quite surprised by the mistake that Ten Hag made here with Donny van de Beek, because it was so obvious against Sociedad that the same mistake was being made, and the result was a very poor, disjointed game as well. Against Tottenham, when one of Bruno or Eriksen wasn't available, which was Eriksen at that time, he played Casemiro, Fred, and Bruno to great effect. Best game in probably 5 years at Manchester United. Since then, Fred has not gotten a start. Didn't even see the pitch until late on against Sociedad, and didn't get subbed on at all versus Aston Villa. And you have to think, what on earth is going on here? Why is that happening? That doesn't seem right to me. Scott McTominay, even in that position, playing deeper with Eriksen more forward, would have been sensible to shore up the midfield and give you some control. I have no idea what Ten Hag was thinking. I don't know if he's thinking, I don't have enough goals, so I'll throw on another goal scorer. But remember, will you, that the 4-2-4, which is effectively how we played, if you take a look at it, 4-2-4, Eriksen and Casemiro here, Ronaldo as a striker and Van de Beek as a second striker, was what got Ole sacked. His worst run of games to start last season was playing the 4-2-4, having Bruno way up there and vacating the midfield. You cannot do it in the Premier League. It is a naive mistake from Erik Ten Hag, unfortunately. It just is. It just is. And my hope is it's not inclined to favoritism for a player that he's coached who has shown absolutely nothing in 3 years. And we'll get into that. Ronaldo was poor, but at the same time, again, against West Ham, you didn't, it was a little less in control, but you didn't see this level of poor, all-around defensive stability. That's what I'm talking about in terms of where the fragility is. It's the first time in a long time we've looked defensively horrible, because they run through the midfield. Eriksen does not provide anything off ball. I've been saying this for weeks, even while we were winning, that I was a little concerned even with Eriksen, Bruno, and Casemiro. But take Bruno out. You cannot replace him with somebody who does not press, does not track back, does not come deep, and does not progress play. You cannot do it. You get away with it when you can put someone like Fred or Scott in there who's going to provide some graft in the midfield. But first and foremost, you have to win the midfield battles in the Premier League, and I think Ten Hag really, really, really got it wrong and has only himself to blame on this one, unfortunately. That's just the reality of it. I talked about it before Sociedad, about Van de Beek. I talked about it after Sociedad, that it would be a huge mistake, and the exact same thing happened. You're down a man in the midfield. You're outnumbered 4-2 or 3-2 at all times in the midfield when Donny van de Beek is playing. Huge mistake, in my opinion. And this is what I want to show for it. Look at this chart. Look at his heat map. He does nothing. He does nothing. That yellow in the center circle is kickoff. That's kickoff after scoring. Other than that, he has 2 touches back here deep. Does nothing in the defensive half. Does no work in the progression area of the field at all. 18 touches in 66 minutes. 0 ground duels won. 0 clearances, 0 block shots, 0 interceptions, 0 tackles, 0 times foul. 0. He doesn't even commit fouls, doesn't get fouled. He's the only United player that was out there that has a 0 in all of those stats. That did not win a ground duel, that did not foul or that did not even commit a foul or receive a foul, have a clearance, block shot, interception, or tackle. He's the only one with 0. And he had 13 completed passes in 66 minutes. You're playing with a man down from the start. There's no point to the player. There's none. I'm sick to death of it, because this guy does not play at a Premier League level. He does not have a use. He is so limited as a player. He has such a small range of skill set that you want him playing purely in the final third, and you don't get that type of gameplay at Manchester United, and you don't really get that type of gameplay in the Premier League. When I was talking about the game before in Discord, when I saw the lineup, I knew exactly what happened, as I thought many people did. You cannot assume you will have possession in the Premier League. That's the difference between lower leagues and the Premier League. You will never, ever, ever get to assume you're going to have possession. Manchester City is the only team that even comes close to doing that, and their team is built after years and years to be the most possession-based system possible. That's not Manchester United. That's not even Ten Hag. You do not by default get possession at Manchester United against teams. Teams will come out and attack you every single day because to them it's a big game always. And the assumption that you'll have possession was the mistake I think that Ten Hag made here in starting Donny van de Beek, and I hope he rectifies it, because the problem I have with it, the only thing that I would mention about it that I have as a problem with Donny van de Beek and that I have with Ten Hag on this, beyond a mistake, mistakes happen, things like that. After Brentford made the team run 14 kilometers, Donny van de Beek didn't run. He walked the entire game. Does not run, does not put in the effort. What kind of message does it send to your players who are on the bench, not getting chances, who have suddenly been dropped from the team? Again, I'll mention Scott and Fred, who have been dropped from the team after actually having played well, that he's getting chances who doesn't work after the message you put in. The message that you put in about all of the hard work and all that. I disagree with that. I find that to be something that Ten Hag needs to rectify, because it will reduce, in my eyes, his authority in the dressing room to play favorites. It's the same of any manager. He was very strong on a lot of issues through most of the season. This is a weak point that I hope that is just a very temporary weak point, and we don't see it again. Because if Van de Beek is playing ahead of guys like Fred and Scott in the team, it's nothing more than favoritism, unfortunately, for a player who has not shown any willingness to work hard on the pitch or play at this level. That's the fact of it. I feel very strongly about this because it's not about Ten Hag or being bad or anything like that, but because I think what he was doing was so great, and I thought we were so close, we were on the cusp, and that things were going so well and you could see it. And to change it, it just kind of blows my mind. We won the midfield battles. That's how we dominated Tottenham. That's how we should have beat Chelsea, frankly. But that's how we were winning the war versus Chelsea. That's how we had the best performances and the most consistency for weeks and weeks and weeks. I mean, look at Newcastle. They're beating everyone. We should have beat them. We dominated them. And it was because he worked out a system in the midfield that won the midfield battles and started there. Strong defense, then winning the midfield battles, the goals will come. Fred and Bruno scored our goals versus Tottenham. Casemiro scored the goal versus Chelsea. Fred had the best chance of the game versus Newcastle. He missed it. Point being, you don't necessarily solve the goal scoring issue by just trying to throw forwards on. And I feel frustrated because I felt like we only have 2 more games until the World Cup. And he was so close to a perfect run in towards the World Cup where we're in top 4, we're flying. I don't know why that system was changed to accommodate Donny van de Beek. I don't get it, personally. So I really hope that is corrected as of Thursday and next weekend. And I think that part of that should also be Eriksen being dropped for a game too. He hasn't been great. I think you should go back to Casemiro, Fred, and Bruno for the next 2 games, that one versus Tottenham, and put in the most hard work and roll with it. But that's my opinion. I think you need that because teams are seeing a weakness in us, and Villa will see a weakness, and they're going to attack our midfield again. And we have to shore it up. We have to put a lot more energy and work in there. And Bruno's obviously a huge, huge miss. You can see that he's 50 times the player than the replacement there, but he shouldn't have been replaced by Donny in the first place. He should have been replaced by Eriksen with Fred or Scott moved it deeper. Anyway, that's where I'm at. After all this big rant, give me your thoughts on it, because I'm passionate about it because I think the team is so close, actually. I think it performs really well, and that was a mistake, but one that if rectified, the team will be back flying again. It's there. The other major issue is at striker. I thought Ronaldo was, again, very poor. It doesn't work hard enough, and when you compile the Ronaldo situation with Donny van de Beek, you're starting down 2 men, in my opinion, compared to how you should be playing in terms of the defensive work rate, positioning, and the off-ball work. Speaking of that, a couple of our information were confirmed. On Friday, there was a report from Mike McGrath at The Telegraph that Dusan Vlahovic was indeed a target of Manchester United, that they are keeping an eye on his situation. Should Juventus go down, they would be not go down, but fall out of the Champions League and continue to struggle, that if his situation became poor, they could go for him. I put this out on video on October 14th that Manchester United would be interested in Dusan Vlahovic and are keeping an eye on his situation should things deteriorate at Juventus. A potentially good target that would cost around 60 million should he become available and Juventus's financial situation be concerning. Benjamin Sesko was also confirmed as still a major target. I didn't have any specific info except what I mentioned prior, which is I never heard he wasn't of interest to United. Never heard. There's some other noise there about Choupo-Moting. I don't think there's any truth in that at all. Even followed that he would be signing a new contract. I don't see anything in that. So, Vlahovic, Sesko, Osimhen, Gonzalo Ramos, as I think I'm supposed to say his name. These are all players that I believe are legitimate targets for next year in the summer. Summer targets, even though Šeško's moving to Leipzig, a lot of people thought it's a move to keep getting more funds for the bigger Red Bull club, and that is true. That is a bit how they operate. So just because he's transferring doesn't mean he's not available. So just confirming that info. We've had a really good run. I'm actually quite happy about the information we've been getting because we've had a really good run, a record of information recently on our targets. We talked about Diogo Costa before The Athletic, put the reports out, Vlahovic, other names like that. So I'm very confident in the information I'm receiving at this point in time that it is relevant and that what United are looking for. I think any of these strikers would be good, hardworking players who can do it all. Obviously, of the ideal in a Victor Osimhen player who does it all, but the costs and getting him out of Napoli, where Sesko, Vlahovic, Gonzalo Ramos, maybe not perfect players as of yet, but are players who could be available at a much better and more tenable fee and cost. There was a report this morning from Ornstein that Liverpool are for sale, or at least are welcoming investors. This could change the landscape again with regards to United because, of course, it affects what's the valuation of United if Liverpool end up being sold, the competition if another ownership group comes in with a lot of money. I think it can be a good or a bad thing. The good part of it is that it may continue to motivate the Glazers to realize we could get a lot of money out of this, and also to recognize you have to put a lot of money in. FSG put a lot of money in. They took very little out. They didn't put a lot of money in, but they invested properly in facilities, and they're still struggling. It's hard to run a football club. It's not easy. And I hope that United can see that the United owners, the Glazers, can continue to see that they are not up for the task of running this club. They're still in a situation where they cannot find finance for the projects that they've talked about, and that is the most likely reason that'll push them to move ahead with a sale that they have explored but have not decided to do so yet. What will push them is if they cannot get the financing that they need or want, which continues to happen, or the investments that they need or want, which continues to happen, that they're not getting them, and the financial situation becomes untenable, which is quite a possibility. Moving forward, we'll talk about Ronaldo. There's some reports that this could be it, the last week of dealing with Ronaldo, and then he's gone after the World Cup. I'm not so sure still. I still believe that it's going to be a nothing happening in January, simply because I do not see a route out for Cristiano Ronaldo. However, and interestingly, I never talked about this, but a week ago a report came out that Inter Miami were working with Lionel Messi to bring him into the MLS. Well, I mentioned this, and this is true, but goes to show they do have the money for it. They were looking at Ronaldo, and they continue to be in dialogue with Ronaldo. I don't understand how the MLS rules. I know they have something about a player exception. I don't know if they could have both, but they have talked with both players, Messi and Ronaldo. If it were possible, you could imagine that be the dream for the MLS and for Inter Miami to bring in Ronaldo and Messi towards the twilight of their careers and have them play together. That would be a spectacular watch for a lot of people, to get people tuning in from across the entire world, and would probably drive the most interest in the MLS in the history of the league, certainly. Similar to when David Beckham came over as an icon, as a global icon at the time, very famous player, drove up the interest in the MLS and in American football quite dramatically. American football, I mean American league football. I don't think that's possible. I'm not sure. But it remains to be seen, what happens there if Messi goes, if Ronaldo goes, if they both go, if it provides an option. But it's been explored and it's been discussed. Regardless, I don't see a lot of routes out for Cristiano Ronaldo in January. Again, I'll give my opinion even stronger now. Get rid of Donny van de Beek and buy Cody Gakpo, who can play more across the front three to give us more options, and still get a striker in summer. That makes a lot of sense to me. That makes more sense than anything else. I don't see the use of it. So, but the Ronaldo thing, the other slight twinge I have with Ten Hag on this, agree or not, is after the whole incident, he's now started 4 games in a row and given the captain's armband. I know there's a lot of things that have gone on behind the scenes. I don't think he deserves it in the slightest. I don't think he deserves it at all. On the pitch, doesn't do anything to deserve it. Yeah, he may be working really hard in training and, mentoring and leading players. I'm not contesting that. I don't think that, I'm not going to say that that's not the case. I would have given it to somebody else, certainly. I don't see how he can lead, playing the way he does, running the way he does, all of that. I just don't see it. So I'm curious to see. Obviously, that's going to change, and Bruno will have the armband when he comes back into the team. So otherwise, there's no real other news at the moment. I will let you know if anything changes. There will be a lot of planning and work being done through the World Cup period as well, but I'll do multiple videos through this week as we get more team news. Find out if anybody else is going to be healthy and available for Thursday. Anthony looked a little bit healthy, jumping around his living room, celebrating getting selected for Brazil World Cup. Obviously a great moment for him. And for all our Brazilian players, Casemiro and Fred also getting selected alongside Alex Telles. But Casemiro, Fred, and Anthony all going to the World Cup for Brazil. They could all be starting quite often. It'll be really fun to watch that team. I think that might be the team that I could support the most, as a United fan, from a United perspective. Those guys, some of my favorite players in there. But anyway, let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on the Villa game, on Donny van de Beek, on Ronaldo being captain. Do you think it's fair to criticize and say that Ten Hag has made some huge errors here? Obviously, those mistakes are going to happen, and understand that it doesn't mean a lack of support or anything like that. But I think what's the point if we're not going to discuss errors and things that occur? It's just discussion. There's nothing harmful in that. So give me your thoughts and opinions below in the comments. Make sure to like, subscribe, turn notifications on, and I'll see you in the next video.